Hello and welcome to our recruitment event for the Operational Communication Centre at West Mercia Police. We're really pleased to be here tonight to answer any questions you've got about our recruitment process. So first I'd like to introduce myself and also my colleagues that I've got with me here tonight. So I'm Chief Inspector Carrie Solomon. I've been a police officer for about 23 years now, all of this time with West Mercia, and I'm currently the Chief Inspector for Public Contact. So I've been in this post for nearly a year now. It's a really good role, really enjoy it, it's varied, and I work with some wonderful people here. So I've got a couple of colleagues with me. So first of all, I'd like to introduce to you Lindsay Bowen, who's the OCC manager. Lindsay, can you just tell us a bit about yourself and your role, please?
Of course. So I've been with West Mercia and working in the OCC for 19 years now. I started initially as a contact handler, then moved on to being a controller, eventually to a supervisor, and then became manager of the control room in the last 2 years nearly now. Part of that role involves overseeing the general day-to-day running and operational running of the control room in the OCC. No 2 days are the same. It's a great job. We work with some great people. I wouldn't have been here for 19 years if it wasn't that good.
Thank you. And I've also got with me Stacey Poulton. Stacey is a controller, but she's also a tutor. So for people that are coming through the recruitment process, you would be lucky enough to be working with Stacey. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your role, please?
Yeah, of course. I've been here nearly 4 years. It'll be 4 years this September. I originally came in as a call taker, and then I was lucky enough to go through to dispatching 12 months later. Both roles are quite different, but enjoyable at the same time. And from the training side of things, I train the new starters that come in from their classroom training, and we do some live calls as well when they come into the control room.
Okay, so if you do have a question for us, then please just write it in the comments. So the OCC is based here at Hinlip. We deal with calls for service from members of the public that come in. This can be telephony, digital. We have about 1 million calls for service a year. We take 101 and 999 calls for service within the room. We cover a large force area at West Mercia, which includes Worcestershire, Herefordshire, Shropshire, and Telford and Wrekin. We are an inclusive force, and we're seeking keen, motivated and hard-working individuals to join our team. So we've currently got recruitment open within the OCC for both controller posts and also call handler posts, which we will tell you a little bit more about shortly. We do provide training here, and it's quite a varied role, so you can really make a difference within these roles. So I'll just come to Lindsay first of all. Can you just tell us a little bit about the application process if people were to apply?
Of course. So that starts via our force website, via the West Mercia website, and the recruitment on there, by filling your online application. If you're successful and shortlisted from that, you would then be invited to one of our assessment centres, and an interview at that point as well. That involves various different tasks to assess your ability of taking calls, etc. Following that, you would then go on to go through employment checks, vetting, medical screening, etc. And once you clear through all of that, you'll eventually receive a start date from us, have an induction day on your first day, get to know the department and how everything works, and then you move into your training before eventually being released onto your teams within the control room. So,
thank you very much. And obviously you just mentioned training there, so I think that'd be a good opportunity for Stacey if you could just tell us a little bit about the training that people would have when they came into the posts.
Yeah, of course. So you'd have your start date on the first day, so for instance the Monday of the week. You have 3 weeks classroom training. It can be very interesting. There's so much you learn in them 3 weeks, but it gives you a great head start for your 5 weeks of call taker training that you then go on to do, which can be from 101 calls to 999 calls. And from them you get a huge variety of different calls for service. They can be from like domestic incidents, road traffic collisions, lost property. The list is endless. We get lots of different calls.
Thank you, that's really helpful. So I think it'd be really good actually to talk about the role. So we are currently recruiting for both call handlers and also controllers, as I mentioned before. So Lindsay, do you want to talk to us a little bit about what being a call handler entails?
yes, so as already mentioned, obviously we take 101, so the non-emergency, and 999 emergency calls in the control room We also deal with digital, so any reports that are made online to us, they're dealt with by contact handlers in our control room and other staff. Obviously, you're the first point of contact, you're the first person that a member of the public is going to speak to. Obviously, some people can be in some real crisis at those points, so it can be quite daunting, quite tasking, but it's very rewarding at the same time. Obviously, it's very important that you take all the information, as much information as possible, fully risk assess that job, obviously to maintain the safety of that caller, keeping them safe, and obviously getting details to make sure if we are sending officers to that we're keeping them safe as well. Obviously, as we've already covered, you will get full training, but that will teach you about how you triage those calls, how you do that risk assessment, and then the grading and how we're actually going to deploy to those incidents.
That's brilliant, thank you. And Stacey, obviously you're currently a controller.
Yeah.
So if you could just tell us a little bit about what that role is.
Yeah, of course. So as my colleague Lindsay has said, when the call takers take the calls, they come through to a dispatcher. They will go through to each individual area. So, for instance, South Worcester, we've got North Worcester, which covers Redditch, Bromsgrove and Kidderminster. So if I was working on that particular bay, I would start by doing the checks on the persons within the log, be it the informant, any suspects or anybody else that was involved in that job, ensuring that the officer's safety is there as well. We'd get availability from callers and dispatch officers out to those jobs, chasing for any information that they've got. So once the officers have timed on, getting updates from the officers, and yeah.
Brilliant. It's quite a dynamic role, isn't it?
Absolutely.
When officers will be providing information and they may come across incidents themselves and things like that, so it is quite a dynamic and varied role. So.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go and see if we've got any questions that have come in so far. So, right, we've got a question that's come in. So, Stacey, this one's for you. So, why did you decide that you wanted to become a call handler and now a controller?
Yeah, so I'm a mum of two. My priority when my children were first born was putting them first. When my youngest decided to go to school in September of 2020, I thought it was then my turn to do something for me, and then this is when the jobs went live and I applied. Honestly, I didn't think I'd get the job. I don't know why, but now I'm here. It's the best decision I ever made. I love my job. No day is the same. Every day is different, and I love that.
That's brilliant, thank you. So, you said that you love the job, best decision you ever made. What is it that makes it like that for you?
So no 2 days are the same. If I'm call handling, I don't know if I'm going to get a 101 call or a 999. I never know what's going to be on the end of that phone. It could be somebody in distress. It could be somebody that's been involved in a road traffic collision. They may not know where they are, so there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes in trying to establish where they are. It could be a mother that's lost their child, and as you can imagine, if they're quite young, that's a highly distressing situation. So trying to keep the parent calm whilst trying to get as much information so we can try and locate that child is our priority. And yeah, just every day is different, like I say. So
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got a question just come in from James. It's a really good question. So what skills are you looking for into recruitment? So Lindsay, what do you think the key sort of skills would be for somebody that's looking to join our team?
Obviously, key is going to be good communication skills. Obviously, in varying forms, you're going to have people in different states of distress, people with different communication abilities themselves that you're going to have to deal with. But I think anyone with any form of customer service background, I think this is well suited to you. Because ultimately, we're here to provide this service and help. So it's just a variance on that, really.
Brilliant. And following on from that question, so do you need contact centre experience? And that's from James as well. Thank you, James. So no, I would say you don't need contact centre experience to be able to join this role. We do look for a variety of skills, as Lindsay said, around customer service and customer focus. Obviously, we put the public at the heart of all that we do. And just having that listening ability and be able to engage with people and get all the information is really good. So I just want to touch back on something you said, Stacey, that we were talking about earlier. So obviously we said that no day's the same, you don't know what's on the end of the phone, you have to be quite varied dealing with the different jobs that are coming in. So working as part of a team, do you feel that that sort of helps you to be able to process incidents, and do you get sort of support and welfare?
Yeah, absolutely. Quite early on into the role, I mentioned earlier I started in 2020, which was right in the middle of COVID. We were getting all sorts of calls then, but then when COVID started easing off, nightclubs started opening. I was quite nervous because we didn't have many calls with regards to disturbances and public orders on nights out. And I remember my very first call I took was a fight that was taking place in a nightclub. And I can remember somebody saying that they needed ambulance, and I remember just shouting out, "Can someone ring me an ambulance?" And one of my colleagues was like, "I'm on it." So it's just the teamwork that's involved in that job is like I say, we're a big family. So yeah,
Thank you.
it's great.
That's good. So we've got a question from Neil now. So how do you deal with trauma from the more serious calls? That's a really, really good question.
Yeah.
Obviously links in quite well to what we were just saying. So we do offer welfare support here to all our staff. We make sure that we debrief staff around any significant calls. Obviously we've got policing experience as well, so we know how those calls can be impactful. So we provide support around from our supervision, but we've also got in-house welfare support, and we do signpost to a number of agencies. I think it does really help when you've got really good colleagues that you work with and you're able to speak to people about that. But if you had a job, Stacey, that was quite impactful on you, what do you do to process that job?
Yeah, I think I've only ever had one that stuck with me. It was a knife incident without going into too much detail. In the moment, I think your adrenaline gets you through that call, and I can remember getting off that call and I burst into tears, and there was no shame. Every one of my colleagues that were in the room at the time asked if I needed to go out, and I remember going out of the building. I went and got some fresh air and I came back in. Again, we were all debriefed, we were updated, thankfully. My caller was okay and there was a positive outcome. But yeah, we got debriefed on her update and how her well-being was after as well. So yeah, we are kept informed along the way.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you. So we've got a question now from Heidi. So do you offer part-time hours? Lindsay, I'll come to you around that. And obviously we're
Yep.
inclusive around flexible working and things like that.
We are. So yes, we do offer part-time hours. I'm currently advertising for 31.82 hours contract, but as Carrie has said, once you start employment with us, you are able to put in flexible working applications, and we will always consider all of those.
Okay, right, Samantha. So what's the most rewarding thing about the role? So I'd probably ask both of you that, because obviously Lindsay has done the job
Yeah.
herself. I think from my point of view as well, from like a senior leader within the OCC, I think I'm really proud of my team every day. I do see the challenges that are faced from traumatic incidents and how they deal with that, and it makes me really proud that that's our team that's running those jobs. And when we see through to the result of how the arrests that are made or the person that's safeguarded, and we've had the first part of that, it is a really powerful process, as it makes us all really proud to be here. But just from your point of view, for both of you then, so can you sort of answer that question and what you think?
Well, simplifying it, I think it's catching the baddies, isn't it? I think that's one of the reasons we all come into this job, and if you get positive outcome from a job and you've helped that member of the public, you've kept them safe, and we catch someone responsible and get a resolution to it, I think that's very rewarding.
Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me there's two-sided things. Mainly is when you speak to a caller, especially if it's someone, for instance, in a first report of a domestic incident. At the beginning you can hear the nerves in their voice on their phone. They're not necessarily open up to you, but as that call develops and goes on, they're telling you more and more, and it just gives you a bigger picture of how we can then help them going forward and what safeguarding we can put into place. And then from my role as a trainer as well, is when you do come in as a new starter, for me, one of the main reasons why I like doing it is seeing where you've gone from day one when you first started to that last day when you come out of training and you're taking solo 999 calls on your own, and that's it's a huge achievement. So yeah, there's two sides of it for myself.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So we've got another question here. So how would you describe the working environment in the OCC? Interesting question. So, Lindsay?
fast-paced.
Yeah, in terms of the
Okay.
role and itself, it is fast-paced, isn't it? In terms of,
Absolutely.
if we're looking at environment itself, obviously we work from a lovely modern building in Hindlip Hall, with all modern facilities. We have access to an on-site gym, kitchens, canteen over at the main part of the building, etc. And it's within lovely grounds, isn't it, really? So
Beautiful grounds.
in terms of that, I think we've got quite a nice
Yeah.
environment.
It's easy accessible as well. Obviously, we're right off the M5.
Yeah.
So from lots of different areas, it's easy accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got custom built OCC, and I think the environment in terms of the productivity within the room, I would definitely describe as fast paced.
Yeah.
But the demand does come in sort of peaks as well, doesn't it? So you don't know one day to the next what you're going to sort of face when you go in there. So it's a really interesting and varied role, and I think the fact that we've got really good teamwork in really helps that environment as well.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So, do contact handlers and controllers work together? So, yes, they do. So, they are slightly different role profiles, but we do have controllers that will call handle, but they do work together as part of a big team. And I think the cohesion between the call handlers and the controllers is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we do all work together, and we also have supervisors within the room, and who will obviously assist with any calls that are coming in. So you're never sort of on your own dealing with a call. There's always somebody there to be able to provide you that support and advice if needed. And I think that's really important as part of the team working process. So we're obviously recruiting actively now for call handlers and controllers. So Lindsay, if people are interested, having heard this, what would you sort of advise them to do now?
So as I mentioned earlier, it's go onto the West Mercia website, click apply, and you'll find all the information there for both of those roles. If you've got any questions or any queries about the roles themselves, then please do email our recruitment team and we can answer those for you.
Okay, so if somebody does apply, the next steps they get all the information through about the recruitment process, and it is a step-by-step process, isn't it?
It is.
So all that information will come out to you, and if you go on our website now, you'll be able to see more information around those roles. But like we said, if you've got any specific questions now, please feel free to put them on the Facebook feed and we'll answer them for you. So I've got another question just coming about what opportunities are there to develop in the role. So Lindsay, we said obviously you've
Done every
developed
role.
to the OCC manager. So
Yeah.
if you just sort of talk through the steps. Obviously you've started as a call handler, how you developed and what the roles are following that.
Yeah, so as I say, I started as a call handler. I spent 2 years initially doing that before I built up the confidence within that role itself and my knowledge and experience where I felt more confident in then progressing into the controller role. Obviously, sometimes it's a case of when vacancies become available, other times there's opportunities to take up some acting opportunities. So when I became a controller, that was through a vacancy. I went through an assessment for that and moved into the controller role. In terms of supervisor, there are a number of opportunities. I did try for that on a number of occasions, so that just shows there's a number of opportunities. And we also, again, for the supervisor role, generally have acting opportunities on occasion, don't we? Again, it was a case of being in that role for a few years, gaining that experience, gaining that confidence, again, to then eventually go on and progress into the role of manager, which is my most recent one. So.
Lovely, thank you. Is the application competency based? So this is around the recruitment process. So I guess that's around like interview and what we'd be asking in terms of that. So could you just talk through, Lindsay, just talk through the, if somebody's invited in, obviously we have an assessment and to interview and stuff like that. Can you just talk through that again a bit of...
Yeah, of course. So obviously the information you provided when you complete the application, you're asked to provide key experience and knowledge against certain areas. So it's important that you try and cover as many of those areas in the previous experience that you've got in order to get the best out of that application that you're putting in. Once you're through that shortlisting, as we said, you're going to an assessment centre and we're going to be looking at testing your abilities to take some mock calls, etc. See how you are at taking detail out of a lot of information, and looking at things like prioritising. I think, as you may have seen on the website before, we do have a little mock
Make the right
exercise,
call.
make the right
Yeah.
call. That's it. And then obviously it would be an interview which is competency based, and it's very much similar to your application. You'll be asked 4 questions from memory, I believe, on that. And again, it'll just be providing evidence against those questions that you asked from your previous experience.
Thank you. I think it's really important to say, obviously, around the tutor bank as well, what we call it, which Stacey alluded to, when you're with a tutor answering the calls, aren't you? So that training does then go on for a further 5 weeks. So I think it's really important just to emphasise how much support you get there.
Yeah.
Do you think, Stacey?
Yeah, 100%. We're always by you. When you first come out of the training school, you will listen to us. Call take, that can be a variety of 101 and 999 calls. You will see how we progress the calls, how we decide on triaging them. So, for instance, does it need immediate deployment? Is it something that we're going to see them at a later date? Is it something that can be dealt with by our officers that are based in the control room? Or is it more something that it's just more intel and it isn't for deployment? And then we'll progress to having yourselves taking the calls, where it's called double jacking, so we will listen in with you. If for any reason that you were unsure of how to deal with that call, there's a quick button that we can press and that switches it over, and then we can start talking. There is a lot of support, and even while you're in the tutor bank process, if there's any calls that are upsetting you or there's something that you're not quite sure of, we have debriefs at the end of every day, so we can just have a discuss of what everybody else in the group has taken, and compare the different calls that have come in on those different days.
Brilliant, that sounds great. So that's obviously quite an interesting point about our recruitment process. So as we said, for call handlers and controllers, we're open for now. So Eleanor, so are shifts set or on a rota? Lindsay, I think you're probably best to answer this around, obviously we do have a set shift pattern, don't we?
Yes, we do have a standard set shift pattern of 2 earlies, 2 lates, 2 nights and 4 rest days. And that is planned in advance. Obviously, you know well in advance what your shift patterns are going to be and what your duties are going to be on those shifts. As we've already mentioned, there is the opportunity of putting in flexible working should you wish to when you join the department. And again, that could vary, but you will always know well in advance. I think it's 12 months in advance you'll know your duties.
Lovely, thank you. So we've got another question. So what support is available to someone who's experienced a difficult call? So I think we did touch on this earlier. Being in an emergency service, obviously, we don't know what calls are going to be coming through the door, and obviously there is the opportunity that there is quite a high likelihood that you may have a traumatic call that can come in. People are sometimes in crisis when they phone us, and it can be a difficult situation to assess. So we have supervisors, as we said before, that are in the room, and they generally will pick up, won't they, if somebody is experiencing or dealing with a difficult call. So I know Stacey gave her experience earlier about being able to have those conversations. We provide welfare debriefs. We've got an in-house welfare, occupational support, and we've also got a number of agencies that we signpost to. But we do provide critical incident debriefing, which sometimes will occur with the officers if they've gone out to that job. So we're able to see the process of that job through and have that debrief, which is structured by somebody that's trained. But we'll also do one-to-ones and provide tailored support depending on a case-by-case basis. You got anything else you want to add to that around welfare support? Okay. So it's from Sharon. So my son is looking at a career in the police. How would he be able to get a career in the police? So I assume this is meaning more towards as a police officer route. So we've got various different police entry routes that are available. If you go onto our website, it will show you. So we have a one where you can enter, which is and also gain a degree whilst doing that. And we've got people that have already got degree experience that can join following that. So if you go onto our website, the recruitment around police officers will be shown on there. If it's a career for general policing, so obviously you've got posts available within civilianised posts, so our OCC post, which we're discussing now, but also there's a number of other posts that we're currently recruiting for, which will be available on our website under the careers section. That will give you the whole sort of host of where we're recruiting to at the moment. So are you able to apply for flexible working once you're in the role? Yes, you are. We look at those on a case-by-case basis. We're fully aware that people's circumstances may change once they're in position. All three of us are parents and obviously juggle that.
Yep.
So yeah, if obviously things change once you're in the role and you feel that a flexible working is needed, that can be applied for any time whilst you're in that role, and we will consider applications against our criteria and look at everything on a case by case. Do you need a driving licence to apply? Don't believe so.
Don't need a driving licence to apply. As long as you can get yourself here by transport, by whatever means, to and from work at Hinlip, then there's no requirement for you to hold a driving licence.
We've got quite a few people that live local that don't drive, be it they walk, they cycle,
Yes, definitely.
live share.
Is there an age limit to apply? No.
There's a minimum age of 18 years to be able to apply, but there is no upper limit. In fact, we've just had a retiree, haven't we?
Oh, we
That's been here
have.
for a number of years. That's celebrated his 70th birthday on his last day. So
Yeah, it's a very emotional
Huge
day for
achievement.
everybody
It
involved.
was.
But, yeah, so no, there's no age limit to apply in terms of upper age limit. So we've got quite a, I'd say quite a diverse
definitely.
workforce in terms of age, haven't we? We've
Yeah.
got a good mix of age within the OCC. So do you need a background in policing to work in the OCC? No, you don't need a background in policing to work in the OCC. We provide training around anything that you'll need to understand when completing the role. Obviously, you're not police officers within this role. It is a civilianised role, but we give you all the training that you'll need to be able to answer those calls. So no background in policing is required.
I come from a non-policing background, so I did 10 years in a supermarket. Prior to that, I'd worked in a coffee shop, various different roles, and then I came here, so I had not even any contact handling or contact centre experience. So absolutely not.
But obviously, really good customer service from
Absolutely.
the way that
From
you are, and
from
obviously
my
from
10
those
years
roles.
experience, yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's really good though, because it shows that transferable skills are really good. And
Yeah.
So Luke, so where is the OCC based? So we are, the roles and the OCC is actually based at Hinlip, which is West Mercia's police headquarters. It's just on the outskirts of Worcester. So yeah, that's where the posts are based. Okay. So Sam has said, are there any part-time roles? Lindsay?
Yeah, so our standard part-time pattern, as mentioned before, is 31.82 hours, so they're 8-hour shifts on a 6-on, 4-off pattern. But as we've mentioned previously as well, there is the option, if you were to join with us on flexible working, you can do, and we would assess those on a case-by-case basis to see if we get something that could match your needs better.
Lovely, thank you. So Neil has said, do you need any previous qualifications to be able to apply for the role? So I'll ask that to Lindsay as well,
Yeah,
please.
nothing specific, but you do need 5 GCSEs grade A to C to join with us, but no other specific qualifications.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. So I think Stacey, if we just come to you again, is there any particular job that, I know obviously we can't go into loads of detail around certain incidents and things like that, but is there any particular job that's stuck in your mind for a positive or other reason that you think actually that was, a really good day at work?
God, there's absolutely loads.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I think one of the main ones I think that will always stick with me is I believe it was April last year of 2023. We had some quite serious flooding, and we had a lady that had came on holiday from America. Very poor time of the year with the flooding, and she had an electric car. Unfortunately, she didn't understand flooding, like when you drive into floodwater, how fast flowing that water can be. She unfortunately drove into the floodwater and her vehicle got swept away with the floodwater. And I remember the call coming in and I thought, no, this isn't what it appears to be. And I was a dispatcher on this incident, on this time. And the call handler had put on the incident log that the floodwater was coming into a car and it was to her feet. And I thought, no way can that be happening. And lo and behold, when officers timed on, I think in the end we had about 15, 16 officers that timed on to the incident. And lo and behold, her car was very nearly fully underwater. The water at the time was up to the lady's neck. She was stuck in the vehicle. As I say, it was electric, so everything shut down. And officers made a human chain from the riverbank into the water, all linking on arms, and it was batons and whatever they could to use to get that lady out of the vehicle, and thank God it was a positive outcome. Quite emotional at the time. I remember the officers all had to go home and get changed. They were very dirty and wet, but yeah, I think that's the one that sticks in my head the most.
Yeah, so obviously you're working with officers that are on the ground going out to the incidents, and I know that obviously they're physically there, but you're as invested as they are in the incident, aren't you? And sometimes
Absolutely.
it's potentially more difficult because you're not there seeing what's going on, and you're
I think it's sometimes, I wouldn't say worse being sat there. I think for myself, if there's like for instance a fight and there's weapons involved, you're concerned for all the members of the public that are on scene, but you're also concerned of the welfare of the officers as well. So you're sending them into a situation that can very easily escalate. So it's ensuring that you've got officers that are all timing on at very similar times. Once they've timed on, it's given them time to kind of de-escalate the situation, whilst they're also trying to update us. We're also welfare checking them, so at least then their supervision that may be based at the station, be it a sergeant or an inspector, know that their officers are safe whilst on the ground. As you can imagine, it can be a very fast-paced situation if there's suspects and things like that. So yeah, it's
brilliant. Thank you. Right, so we've got a question that's just come in. So what skills would you learn? I think you've covered a few there, haven't you? So communication, do you think, is obviously a really, really key skill?
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
And if you haven't already got it, multitasking,
Yeah.
because you are going to be juggling many things at once, aren't you?
Yeah. We'll get calls from people that have language barriers. So if they don't speak English, they might speak, be it Romanian, Spanish, Portuguese. We've got a system that we can use where we can get a translator on the phone, and it's like a three-way call. So we'll ask the question to the translator, and the translator will go back to the caller. So it can take that little bit longer. And as you can imagine, if it's an emergency incident, you want to get it done as fast as possible. But obviously, anybody from any background can call, and we've got those translators there as well, should we need them.
That's really good. So I think obviously listening is a really, really key skill that you'll learn.
Definitely.
Multitasking, risk assessing, so some really, really good skills that you can build up. Teamwork, and as you said, multitasking is a huge one. So we've got a question from James. Stacey, specifically for you, what's the funniest call you have taken?
Oh, that's put me on the spot. Oh God, I don't actually know now. I might need a few minutes to think about that.
We'll come back to that one.
Yeah, I think maybe come back to it. I don't know offhand. I'm sorry.
So also from James, what's the difference in pay and grades between the two roles? So Lindsay, if you just sort of give us an overview of the grades and the pay that they'd be expected, obviously.
Yes, so a contact candidate would be recruited on a grade C. With shift allowance, that's approximate annual salary of around £33,000 a year, so quite a considerable amount. Our controllers are a grade up from that, so they are approximately £35,000 per year, based on shift allowance as well.
So a grade D, aren't they? Yeah. Okay. Any funny stories come back to you
Oh my
yet,
God,
Stacey?
no,
it's
it's
fine,
really
don't
put me
worry.
on the spot. I'm so sorry.
This is a good question. So from Charlotte, how does West Mercia OCC manage right care, right person, and does this make the role very challenging? That's a really good question. So I'll probably take that one. So nationally, you may have seen right care, right person that's been reported, which was based around making sure exactly that people that call us for service get the right care that they need from the right agency. So West Mercia Police have adopted this, and we've given all of our staff significant training around right care, right person, and it is exactly that, around giving them exactly what they need at the time. So the police may not be the most appropriate agency to answer that calls for service, especially around social or mental health. We've put a number of systems in place to be able to support our staff to make those decisions, and we review a number of incidents to make sure that we are making those decisions. But there is always support available within the room to be able to identify the calls for service and make sure that we're answering them appropriately, and that we're doing everything we need around making sure that the person at the heart of that call gets the appropriate care they need. But I suppose for me, coming to you, Stacey, do you think that that has had an impact on your role, and do you feel you've had the support you need to be able to answer those questions?
Yeah, I think from the policing side of things, we were going out to a lot of jobs that we weren't necessarily the right department to be dealing with. So, for instance, if it's mental health, we have training on it, but nowhere near as much as a proper mental health practitioner, for instance. Be a call for a family that's in need for like child social services, for instance. So demand-wise, you've seen that come down, which means then we can give service to members of the public that may be calling in for like domestic incidents, burglaries, like criminal damage, antisocial behaviour and things like that. So it means we can concentrate on other jobs that are also coming in as well.
Lovely, thank you. Can you get overtime? There is the opportunity for overtime on occasion, isn't there?
There is.
So we do. We don't have set overtime, but we do put out for overtime on occasion, and it can be quite a regular thing. So we've got a question from Gemma. So what qualifications do you need to apply to be a contact handler? Thank you, Gemma. That's a good question.
Yeah, so it is just 5 GCSEs or equivalent, grades A to C. It's not specific in what subjects they're in. No requirement for degree or any more specific qualifications other than that.
Okay, that's good. So I think it's just the application will obviously have questions involved, won't it? So any life experience or any previous experience that you've got, you can tailor to be able to answer those questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no specific qualifications in terms of anything you need above and beyond your GCSEs to be able to answer this role. So what skills do people need to have to apply? So if there's any, we do ask for obviously answers in relation to the questions that we put out, but specific skills, I think we've touched on quite a few of those we've talked about today. So obviously communication skills, listening, customer service is really important, but all the training that you will need in terms of upskilling will be available when you join, and we'll make sure that you get the training you need to be able to complete the role.
I think it's knowing how to prioritise as well,
Yeah.
especially from the dispatcher side of things. It's putting jobs in like urgency, so what do we need to get to like right now? What can we get to at a later date? And it's just knowing what calls to prioritise and things like that. So,
Thank you. So do you have part-time or job shares? So I think Lindsay touched on it earlier about part-time and job shares.
Yeah, so the roles we're advertising for currently are part-time hours of 31.82 hours of the 6 on 4 off pattern. Again, flexible workings can be put in once you're successful into the role, and they will be looked at on a case-by-case basis to see if we can meet what you're looking for.
That's great, thank you. So obviously if you are keen to apply, please go on our website and have a look at the roles that are available on there. The information is available on our website on how to apply under the contact handler and also the controller post. We're advertising both at the moment, so we have got a recruitment process ongoing at the moment, and it would be really great if you could have a look on the website and see how to apply. And if you've got any further questions, then please add them in the comments below and we'll answer them as best we can.
I'm still trying to rack my brain about
funny-
my funny jobs. Yeah, I'm just trying to think what else. I've had all sorts, from cats stuck in trees, people saying that their online shopping orders haven't come. Yeah, really, really random calls where people genuinely do think that people are, that the police are the people or the agency that needs to deal with them. So yeah, nothing hilarious is coming to mind, but yeah,
It's obviously different every day, isn't
Yeah,
it? So you get an
absolutely.
absolutely wide variety of different calls. So it's interesting, I would say, isn't it? An interesting
Absolutely.
post. So David, thank you. Are there any exams after training? Well, there's assessments, isn't there? But I will let probably Stacey So after,
Yeah.
so you'd have an assessment after your classroom based training, wouldn't you, on the call handling?
Yeah, so they tend to be, I believe it's 4, unless anyone wants to correct me, 4 different scenarios that you're given, and based on the 3 weeks of classroom training that you're given, you'll have to take calls. Now, they're usually from, for instance, myself, and any of my other colleagues that are in the control room, so we will call you from a different part of the room, and, for instance, have a scenario with you. I might be reporting a burglary, and you have to deal with that as if I was an actual member of the public, so ensure that you've got the correct opening type as a burglary, grading it appropriately, so has it just happened? Do we need to get there immediately? Or has it happened overnight? Do we just need to get there as soon as we can? And they're based on scores, so obviously depending on what questions you ask, the more questions you ask, you've potentially got the higher marks that you can get and things. I don't necessarily think there's a
There's no
pass and a
or fail.
fail.
No.
It's just more if you've not necessarily got the answers right to those questions, at least then we know what we need to work on.
And then it's continued review and reflection, isn't it,
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
tutor bank?
Yeah, so that's a 5-week process where you start off on the 101 calls. When you are okay and confident with those, we then tend to drip feed in the 999 calls as well. And then we then try and let the reins go a little bit. So we tend to leave our headsets plugged in, but we let you deal with the calls, and kind of if you need us, you can kind of tap your pen on the table or give us a wave, and we'll come and put our headsets on as well. And then eventually you'll be fully solo, but again, there's always people around the room that if you need that support, as I mentioned earlier on, if you need an ambulance, scream it out in the room. Can someone phone me an ambulance or fire? There's always somebody nearby to help.
Okay, so Sarah, thank you. Do call handlers make their own decisions or do they ask for advice? Well, I'd say it's probably a mix of both. We do, the call handlers do make decisions. They will triage a call, but also if that's escalated to an incident, they will look at the grading of that call. So Stacey's touched on if it's an emergency, whether we need to get a police officer there straight away, whether it's a priority call. So they will make decisions around that, but we have a process that you follow in order to be able to make those decisions, and there's a number of options that are taken into account when making that decision. However, if there is some concern around, have I made the right decision, I'm not really too sure here, there is always somebody available for advice. So we have supervisors in the room, we have a sergeant in the room, we also have an inspector in the room that manage different incidents, and they always are available to give you advice if you feel that you need it. So although you are decision making, there is somebody there to sort of help you with that if it's something that is a bit complex, because sometimes the calls aren't always really, really clear cut, are they? So there is support always available for you. So Gemma, do you follow a script? So not necessarily. So there are some incident types, aren't there, where you would have a certain set questions that you'd need to ask. So, for example, a missing person, there will be a question set available if you decide that it is a missing person. That would populate so that you get all the information that's required. But as far as a script, no, it's just based on incident type, where there will be certain questions that you would need to ask, and they will be pre-populated on our system for you. But I suppose in the training we do give advice, don't we, around what to.
Yeah, absolutely.
How to answer the call, what to say, what to ask. And there will be certain things, certain information that you need to collect on those calls, won't there, to be able to make the risk assessment. Okay, so do we accept applications from people with a disability? Yes, we are an inclusive force, and it will be looked at. We accept all applications, but if there is any reasonable adjustments that will need to be made for a specific person, then we will look at those on a case-by-case basis and get those reasonable adjustments put in. So, yes, we will. Dawn, so how long does the recruitment process take? That's a good question.
So from initially submitting your application through to we started in the role in the first day, you're probably looking at about 6 months, I would say, with all the different stages of the application process you have to go through, and obviously checking your medical screening, vetting, etc.
Yeah, and we do have certain call handler courses, don't we, aligned throughout the year, so it could be a little bit less than that, or But it just depends, doesn't it, on
It does.
but there are a number of checks that would need to go through before starting that call handlers course. But it's a good question. So obviously, as we've said before, we are recruiting now, so have a look if this is you're finding this interesting. Okay, we've got another question, Eleanor.
Controversial.
So, would you recommend West Mercia over West Midlands? I'm on the border. Wow, we're obviously going to say yes to West Mercia, aren't we?
I'm right on the border.
I've worked in West Mercia for 23 years, so obviously all of my policing career. So I'm West Mercia through and through, so obviously I would recommend West Mercia. I think Lindsay's worked for us 19 years.
Yeah.
Stacey, you've been here
4 years this year.
So I'm hoping that will give you the information you need, but obviously we would recommend West Mercia as a place to work, so I hope you go on that and have a look at the application. Steve, can I transfer from another force? So I'm assuming if that's, I don't know if that's a police officer or whether that's somebody that's already in another force control room, but I'll answer from both. So if you're in another force control room, yes, you can obviously go on there and apply under our application process on our website. If that's for a police officer, then we do have transferee options available. We advertise those again through our website. So at the moment, I think we're advertising for specific roles. Right, so Freya's asked us just to clarify again how much is the pay. So Lindsay, I think you're the one with the knowledge here.
It is, yeah. So approximately for a contact handler, including all your shift and other allowances that you get for annually, you're looking at around £33,000. If you were to go for the controller role, again, with all your shift working allowances, you're looking at approximately £35,000 annually.
Lovely, thank you. Because obviously working unsociable hours, so to speak, we do attract a shift allowance, don't we?
Yeah.
So, Stacey, because obviously you work the shifts, I think people are quite interested in shifts. So, do 2 earlies, 2 lates, 2 nights, 4 days off.
Yeah.
How does that shift pattern work for you with your family life?
It took a while to get used to it, I think, because I did a normal 5-day, 2 days off before I started here. However, now I absolutely love it. Those 6 days, because you do 2 earlies, then you go on to your lates, then you go on to your nights. You don't realise how fast that time goes. And then your 4 days are amazing. It depends on what days of the week. So it could be, for instance, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So for myself, I've got 2 children. I can get housework done, do shopping, pick up the children from school, sort dinners out. My husband might disagree there, but but yeah, it's really. I don't think now I could never not do this kind of job, the 6 on 4 off. You're only working that 1 extra day if you did 5 and 2, and you're getting 4 days at the end of it. So I feel like I'm gaining a lot more from those 4 days.
I can definitely say from going the other way round, from working the shifts onto the standard Monday to Friday, there is a massive difference.
Me, when I do training, as much as I absolutely love having and playing a part in the training, that's a Monday to Friday, and having weekends off, I love also then going back to my shift and getting those 4 days back. So yeah, it's nice.
Okay, so thank you. Sarah, are there opportunities for flexible working for people with families? So yes, I think we've discussed flexible working a little bit, but probably to go into a little bit more detail. Flexible working is assessed on a case-by-case basis. We've all got families. I've got 2 very small children, and I know you guys have obviously got children as well. So we understand that side of it, and if people do want to apply and look at a flexible working to suit their family and caring needs, then we will consider that on a case-by-case basis. But there are different types of flexible workings that can be looked at if you apply for the role. So go through the application process and apply for the role, and then obviously we'll be able to look at that. So again, I just want to remind you to have a look on our website, because the application process is open, so please have a look. And there is the 2 different roles that we've talked through in quite some detail around call handling and the controller, and we're advertising for both at the moment. So go on the website and have a look and apply. So, got any more questions? If anybody's got any more questions they want to bring in there, but I'm just coming back to Stacey really, because obviously you're living and breathing it. So I know we were talking about the shifts. 6 on 4 off, so before late, obviously you've got opportunity to be at home in the day. So do you feel you get quite a lot of time at home around that shift pattern?
Yeah, I've got a routine of things what I do. So I like to on my rest days, on my first rest day, I tend to get all the cleaning in the house done, so then I haven't got to touch that again.
Yeah.
With the shopping and things like that. Again, picking the kids up from school, I absolutely love. Having the 4 days, you don't realise how much you can get done in them 4 days. Yes, they do go by very quickly, unfortunately, but it's great. We've done, from my colleagues in the control room, we've done girly weekends away. I've gone on like a 4-day trip away with my family, and if I had just a normal 5-day, 2-day, you can't really go that far in 2 days. So it's enabled me to do quite a lot in the nearly 4 years that I've been here.
Brilliant, thank you. So Gemma, thank you for your question. How long does the training take? So Lindsay, just remind us of the timescales for training.
So when you initially start, it's 3 weeks classroom-based training.
Yeah.
That would be learning, obviously, all how the IT, etc. works, how our systems operate. Then you move into what we call the tutor bank, which would be working on some of our lovely tutors, such as Stacey. And that is for 5 weeks. Obviously, that can be tailored as well for how you're progressing in that. It could be that you may need slightly longer, you may need slightly less. Obviously, again, that will be based on how you're progressing through that role. So end-to-end, approximately 8 weeks, isn't it? But we are always continually learning as well. Obviously, policing is an area that's forever changing, isn't it? So we're always updating things. So there is always continued training, progression throughout your time with us.
Yeah, and we do have in-house training as well, yeah. So on a regular basis, so that's for everybody, that wouldn't just be for new starters.
We have training days and things as well, don't we?
Yeah. So, Paula, thank you for your question. Would you need prior experience qualifications? Is the role open for somebody looking for a career change? Absolutely, this is open to somebody looking for a career change. So you don't need previous experience in the role. We've obviously talked about qualifications, so it's just your GCSEs, 5 GCSEs. And as Stacey said before, she's had a complete career change, haven't you, Stacey?
Absolutely, yeah. So I don't know if you was involved earlier. I've come from a background from a supermarket. I was there for 10 years. As much as I did love that role, I wanted something that was more for me. That suited me more when my children were smaller, and I could be at home that little bit more while they were that little bit younger. However, coming here, there's colleagues who have got younger children than me, and yeah, it's the day-to-day life, and I've got the family balance. I've got 2 children myself, so yeah, it's a great change.
And what do you feel you get out of this role? Do you feel like, I know obviously we're serving calls from members of the public and that, time of need, and that's really, really important. So what do you feel you get out of that?
People tend to call the police if there's an emergency. So you can speak to very, very distressing people. Sometimes they can be quite angry, and by the end of that call, they'll be thanking you for their time, thanking you for listening to them. So it's just knowing that that person's called you and they could be right up here, but then they've come right down and they're satisfied that they've been listened to and that we're going to help them.
Do you feel like you made a difference for that person?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, definitely.
Brilliant. So, Hayley, so what are the benefits for working for West Mercia Police? So I don't know if that means in terms of actually benefits or, what's great about it. So
get a blue light card.
Lindsay, Stacey, obviously support staff, so benefits you think for working for the police?
Benefits working for the police, I think, as you touched on there, it's just the ability to take pride in your work, isn't it? And
yeah, absolutely.
some reward and satisfaction from doing the job that you do on a daily basis and helping members of the public. In terms of other benefits, we have a lovely working environment in terms of the office that we work from the OCC. It's a modern building with all modern facilities. We have access to our own gym, also a canteen up at our main site. Hindlip Hall itself is within some lovely grounds, so you've got some lovely areas you can go walking on your break.
Church on site.
Our
own vicar.
As you mentioned earlier, easy access as well in terms of getting here with transport links. We are just off Junction 6 at the M5. And it's also, I think, it's a lovely, friendly, as you've mentioned, touching it, family environment, really, isn't it, when you're within your team? So
Yeah, I think staff welfare, if I personally had an issue, you work with such a close room of people, your colleagues pick it up straight away, be it if that might have been home life or a call that you've taken. I don't think there's ever been a time where I've not been able to go to somebody and say, I've just took this call, I just need to air it out, and would you have done anything differently? So yeah, I think it's a great environment to work in.
Okay, thank you. So, Dana, if I don't have GCSEs, what are the options? So, I think we'll be looking at a level 2 equivalent. If you don't have GCSEs. So, when they asked you a question about benefits as well, so obviously we've talked about rates of pay and obviously the annual leave and all the general benefits that you'd have as part of that. But yeah, I think, do you enjoy working for West Mercia Police, ladies?
definitely,
I do.
yeah.
So where is the training? That's from Paula as well. So the training is on site. We've got our own purpose-built training room and facility within our environment here. And then your additional training on Tutor Bank would be in the live OCC environment, which is literally just in the next room for where the original training takes place. So it's all done on site and in-house here. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that we've had. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody that's come online tonight to listen to us. As I hope it's come across, we're all quite passionate about the role and the job here. I'm really proud of the work that's done in the OCC every day. Obviously putting the public at the heart of everything that we do and answering those calls for service is really important to us. So I'd just like to sort of thank Lindsay and Stacey for taking the time to be able to have these conversations with you. I think it's really important that we've got people that are actually doing the job here to be able to express their thoughts around it. So thank you for taking the time to come on. I really hope you found it valuable. And again, I'd just like to say that we're open for recruitment. So go on the website, have a look at the roles. And I hope to see you at one of our next intakes soon. So thank you very much.